We're at an archaeological site with a lot of historical significance called Bluff Furnace. It's right in the middle of downtown Chattanooga, and it was one of Chattanooga's very earliest heavy industries. The Bluff Furnace was built before the Civil War in the mid-1850s and went into blast, that has actually produced some usable iron that could be used in foundries, in 1856. Then, after a couple of years of not so great performance, it was torn down and rebuilt as a blast furnace that used coke as a fuel. It switched from charcoal to coke because that's a more efficient fuel, and as a matter of fact, all furnaces today, blast furnaces, contemporary blast furnaces, use coke as a fuel. It has thermal properties and structural properties that make it an ideal fuel for a blast furnace. You can make your furnace much bigger than if you use charcoal. Charcoal's cleaner than coke, but it's an economy of scale issue. The furnace that you use charcoal in has to be much smaller than the furnace that you can use coke in. That furnace had two blasts, one where they ran out of fuel, but produced 500 tons of usable, very high grade usable iron. And then in 1860, it went into blast again and failed, catastrophically failed, so that it had to shut down permanently. One of the main investors and the ironmaster, the original ironmaster, was Robert Cravens. His house is a National Park Service monument on Lookout Mountain. He was the person who got the company going that bankrolled this whole system. And he was an active ironmaster. He actually came here and worked on this furnace. Once the furnace failed, it could no longer be used to produce iron. So all the machinery where we're standing now, the blast furnace engine, the gears, everything that was used to make iron here was moved to different sites. Selma, Alabama probably got the majority because there was a blast furnace shortly after this one failed that cranked up there, and that supported the Confederacy's war effort. It was after the Civil War that Chattanooga's economy really got cranked up. Ironically, the Civil War meant an occupation by Northern troops here in the city who got to know this area, and after the Civil War, a lot of them came back and invested and built factories, and Chattanooga's reputation as a industrial city was well earned in the 19th century. I think a lot of it has to do with its location. It's right on the river. You can either go over these mountains that are next to us or through them, and the way through them is either next to the river or actually on the river. So it enjoyed some environmental, I guess, advantages to manufacturers here. The site slowly got covered as this hillside eroded over it. We're standing at the site of a house that was built here in the 1890s. The foundations for this house meant that dirt was moved across the site, and it got completely covered. My predecessor at UTC actually discovered the site using an archaeological field school and students digging here. I took his place when he died, and we completely excavated the site and found all the remains. Then, a couple years ago, this framework that we had erected of stainless steel that showed the size and dimensions of the furnace was covered with canvas that basically depicts, in an artful way, the history of the site. So it's a combination of art and history at the same industrial site. The legacy of the manufacturing success was some severe environmental problems, and I can remember coming through Chattanooga on the interstate when I was small, and we had our lights on in the day. I mean, those are not apocryphal stories. It really was the case. The air pollution was so awful here, you had to turn on your car lights to see where you were going in the middle of the day. And once the heavy industries went under, basically, and stopped producing pollutants, the air got nice, and Chattanooga went off in a different direction, not heavy manufacturing, but in a diversified economy. Bluff Furnace put Chattanooga on the map in terms of the history of industry, basically, because of this use of coke, this innovative fuel that Robert Cravens kind of threw the dice and gambled on producing a furnace that had that cutting edge quality to it. He's trying to make money. Ultimately it failed. Cravens lost some money on this, but it was one of the very few in the whole United States that was doing that kind of process at that time. In Europe it was done more commonly, but here in Tennessee it was the very first. In the South it was the first to use coke as a fuel, and so it's an innovation that you don't find anywhere else.